They have like a supervisor. Yeah. Right, exactly. But it's going well.
I'm from one to the other.
Oh man. Welcome. I'd like to welcome everybody today to May 16th, 2023, the Dayton City Council meeting. Call to order, please. Roll call.
Member Neary,
Here.
Member Neiman,
Here.
Member Kelly,
Here.
Member Levins, here. Member Wyrick,
Here.
Member Volter,
Here.
Mayor Baker,
Here.
City Administrator Fawcett,
Here.
City Attorney Edmondson.
Here.
Now, if you all rise now for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all. Fantastic. Thank you, everyone. Next on the agenda would be the mayor's report. It's going to be a tad short, although it's been a busy month. Tristan and our team have been getting together a lot this week or month and getting to know the city. So I really appreciate all her hard work on the things that we do in the city. The second thing I need on the mayor's report will be we will have the upcoming Memorial Day parade. So I hope everybody shows up for the Memorial Day parade. It's obviously one of our biggest, most exciting things that we have in the city. One of our most honored traditions. So please show up and show your respect and your honor for all those who served us and have some fun while you're doing it. Which kind of brings us to Armed Forces Day. Armed Forces Day is on this Saturday. And unfortunately, I'm going to be out of town. My nephew is graduating. I'm very proud of it. And he's a smart kid. Grant, we love you, buddy. But I won't be able to present for the city. Asked Member Neary if he'd be able to, and I believe he's also out of town. Would anybody from council be able to represent the city for Armed Forces Day for the VFW? It's Saturday.
I'll do it.
Member Neiman, you're the best. Thank you so much. I'll have the VFW get in touch with you. And that is all I have for the mayor's report this month, which brings us to the next member of the docket, which would be the approval minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of April 18, 2023?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the April 18, 2023 meeting.
Member Kelly's made the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Member Neiman. Any comments? Questions, concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Next would be a presentation. Pretty excited about this. Caitlin Sparks, Dayton resident, has been working really hard on the traffic garden. She's gotten grants. She's designed this, and she's going to give us a great presentation on the traffic garden that will be coming to Dayton, Kentucky. So, Caitlin, I'm going to give you the floor, and the floor is yours, ma'am.
Should I use this mic? Yes.
Yeah, please.
Okay. Let's see here. Don't do that. I guess you guys can hear me okay. Should I lean into the mic? I don't know. Thank you.
Remember, Dr. Johnny's very good at mics.
Great. Thank you so much. So I do have a presentation. It's in a PDF form, so it's not going to be super easy to click through it. But anyway, while that gets set up, my name is Caitlin Sparks. A resident of Dayton, Kentucky. I've been here for 5 years now, which is amazing. Time has flown by, and it's just been a wonderful experience to be a resident and neighbor here. So yeah, thank you for giving me the time to talk about this project. I just wanted to give a basic overview of what a traffic garden is. The name kind of alludes what it is. People are expecting us to build a garden in Gill Lynn, but we're actually not. We're working with the concrete. And yeah, so traffic garden, we can go to the next slide. Yeah, traffic gardens are miniature worlds of streets for children. They are magical learning places, and they are places that are safe, separated from traffic, to teach young people about traffic safety. So next slide. So here's an example of a pop-up. This is actually a temporary traffic garden and a big community event. This was in Washington, D.C. You see some little tykes that are experiencing road infrastructure like intersections and stop signs. And yeah, there's kids on scooters as well as bikes. Yeah, this is another, you can move forward. Thank you, Jay. This is another example. This is in Arlington, West Virginia. I think West Virginia. I have another picture of this one. This was installed last year, and this was a really fun project because this was actually installed with a turf tank robot. So they were able to put in GPS coordinates and have this robot paint the course perfectly. But their field is really, really beautiful. They recently gave a presentation that I was also on at the League of American Bicyclists. We were talking about our toolbox for building traffic gardens. So yeah, again, you see even older children here. And this particular example has a bike lane built into it with that green stripe. And again, they had a big community event to celebrate the opening of this. We can go to the next slide. So the traffic garden concept, and maybe some of you have experienced it in your lives. Some folks that are my peers have experienced things like safety towns where you often see little miniature cars. And actually one of the first ones was in Ohio. A police officer built it in 1937. And they're very similar to what we're going to build in Dayton at Gill Lynn. These are maybe a little bigger. Some of these also include traffic signals, buildings, and then you see the presence of little miniature cars. But one thing that they did learn from these safety towns was that kids didn't want to be the pedestrians because they wanted to drive the ambulance, they wanted to drive the cars. So that sort of multimodal transportation was kind of missing in some of these safety towns. So traffic gardens came out of this concept and started to include bikes and more opportunities for pedestrians. So we move to the next one. Yeah, so again, just some features of a traffic garden. You can do a traffic garden with chalk and tape on the ground with a very tiny budget. Just really depends on your faculty size, your funding, construction, available equipment, your partners. But they almost always include a paved surface and painted streets. They include intersections, stop signs and signals, and sometimes landscaping, benches, and extra buildings. Next slide. So yeah, this is that really beautiful one with the turf tank robot built, and look how beautifully and precise it is. And yeah, this one is a big example. They have a nice rectangular shape, has lots of additional features. Again, the bike lane is there. I think they have a railroad crossing, a roundabout, and it's funny. A lot of parents are saying that adult car drivers need to learn how to use these roundabouts. So maybe I hope that parents will be learning from ours as well. So next example is, next slide, please. It's from Washington, D.C. And we can go through these a little quick. These are examples from all across the country. Yeah, this one's in D.C. I like this one because it has a big, beautiful mural next to it. It's very colorful. The next one is in D.C. also. There's lots on the West Coast and on the far East Coast. That one, if you go back, Jay, there was something I wanted to point out about this one. I like that this example has a curvy surface, so it's not perfectly flat But it actually works really well because a lot of these kids are going to be using balance bikes to interact with our traffic garden, and balance bikes require a little bit of momentum to get them rolling. So I think things like that work just fine. Here's another example. This one, I think there's going to be a lot of these features in our traffic garden. We're going to include a roundabout and a railroad crossing in ours. It's the next one. St. Paul, Minnesota, theirs is really wonderful because it's super colorful, and that's something that can be done. I think they actually had a muralist paint this, where often you have public works officials, folks who are already doing a lot of road striping, doing the installation, but this one they hired a painter, and they were able to add a lot of colors and features to it in that way. And this one also a good example where like the stop sign and the roundabout sign, they're just using a cone, so like that's just a great example of how it doesn't have to be perfectly built. It can be put together with resources that you already have. This one in Portland, Oregon is, again, another really big example. And this one is interesting because it's making use of existing parking. So they're using the parking sometimes, and they maybe use it less because they've installed this. But traffic gardens are often using concrete surfaces that are not being used as much anymore. So like some old tennis courts or basketball courts, this is like a maybe extra parking, but it's kind of nice to see that there's multiple uses for this one. Just a beautiful example in Fairfax, Virginia. Just liked this one. It's not huge. It's not a huge space, but still really effective. Same with this one. It's relatively small. I like this one because of the big welcome to Hillcrest Park Traffic Garden. I imagine we will also have a welcome to the Dayton Traffic Garden sign painted into our design. Next slide. This one is really unique and wonderful, very whimsical, less rigid road lines, but still I think really effective. And again, this one was installed by a muralist. And on the ground there, those images are things that people would see in their community. So they're actual places that have been painted onto their traffic garden. This one in Alexandria, Virginia, a little bit older, again, like an uneven surface. This one looks to be, it's right next to a playground and sport facilities. I think that's being in parks is really a good fit. Sitting next to schools is also a good fit. I'm super excited about our location in Gill Lynn because it's a public park and people will be able to use it at any time of the day and from, visiting, if they're visiting Dayton or if they live here. Traffic gardens almost always include some signage, and that includes stuff that's painted right on the ground. It can be very, very official and, printed and framed into more of like a wayfinding sign, the example on the top right, or it can be made out of paper from the kids that'll be using it and installed on a fence and, let them have a part in making it. So we definitely plan to have some sort of signage that the kids are helping us make. And I love this sign because it's also teaching some bicycle safety rules, teaching about wearing a helmet, some hand signals that you would use if you're riding in traffic. So I imagine that our traffic garden will have some signage like that to be teaching kids how to ride safely on the road. And traffic gardens are a great spot for community events. So we will definitely have a big ribbon cutting that I planning that in September. Don't have an official date for it yet, but we'll have a big ribbon cutting, invite the press out. We'll have an actual ribbon that we cut. I've been working a lot with the school lately, the elementary school. I was up there this morning. They had a parent engagement day, so we're doing some surveys of the parents right now and just asking them if their kids are already walking to school, how far they are from their schools, do they feel comfortable, yes or no, and why. And so, yeah, it's been great to work with the schools already and getting the kids involved. I think in the top right picture and the one below, that's like a pop-up bike shop, which we've done here in Dayton for the past couple of years. And I think those are actually the next photos. Nope, not yet. So just why we selected Dayton. One, because I live here and I want to see really great things happen in this community. And two, because Dayton is actually a really perfect fit for a traffic garden. It's already a small community. It's walkable. It's bikeable. It's one of the things that I think is bringing people here is that they can walk across the river and get to a huge metropolitan center, either for jobs or entertainment. We have a growing business district here with all sorts of offerings that it's really exciting. So yeah, it's great for people to have these, to have a walkable, bikeable city. I think people want that. And so our kids are already walking to school. So that's another great reason why this traffic garden's a good fit. We have trails, we have parks, we have 7 beautiful parks. And we have a growing bikeway network. The Riverfront Commons Trail, which the city of Dayton has done a lot of work to contribute to, will eventually connect Fort Thomas to Ludlow, Kentucky, and even beyond. Jay, I heard that you were interested in taking it all the way to, yes, yeah, so that would be incredible. I love that vision. And yeah, again, just traffic gardens, biggest purpose is for kids to have fun and to be active outside, but it's experiential learning. So they're going to be out there having fun, being active, and learning at the same time. So I feel like sometimes that's the best way to get them to remember something. It's teaching them safety. It's also a really great component for STEAM or STEM curriculum. It's teaching them about city planning, engineering, and it's a great way to get young people involved with those ideas. It's also, sustainability and equitable transportation. So we have lots of allies, lots of people coming together to help put this together. I work for Tri-State Trails. We're the organization that wrote for the grant and are putting in the most staff time for this project. Early Childhood Mobility Coalition and Discover Traffic Gardens have been building traffic gardens for, I think, over a decade now. And most of those examples that we saw, they had a hand in helping plan and implement them. So they are helping us design our traffic garden over in Gill Lynn. And I will soon have three drawings to share. We're going to have 3 to kind of look at, compare what is working, what we like, and even combine some elements from the 3 examples to finally land on the one plan that we will install this year. We are partnering, our grant is through the Governor's Highway Safety Association, and I'll go into that a little bit in the next slide, but we applied for it through the Kentucky Department of Transportation. So we send them a monthly report, which is quite a lot for grant reporting. They want to know what our progress is, where we're spending money, who we're working with. So we're partnering with them all month long and until the project is finished in November. Dayton Schools has been amazing. And like I mentioned, I was there this morning and I was just like so thankful. Miss Amanda, I don't know if that rings a bell with any of y'all, she helped me kind of wrangle parents in and say like, hey, y'all come and take this survey. And I don't think any of them would have stopped to talk to me. Like this person they don't know on a busy day where they're meeting their teachers. I had this incredible ally who every parent stopped to talk to us because they know Amanda and their kids love her. So that was amazing. And Dayton City Administration have been so helpful. It's just another reason why I love living here. It's just been easy to say like, hey, I have this project, and everybody's like, yeah, let's do it. So that's unique and wonderful about the city of Dayton. Vision Zero, it used to be Vision Zero NKY, but I think they're actually going by Vision Zero Cincinnati. But it's a Greater Cincinnati coalition of interested partners and individuals who are trying to get traffic deaths down to 0. That's their big mission. So they are really interested in this project and teaching young people about safety. We're also partnering with Red Bike. We have a Red Bike station down in Bellevue. Mobile Bicycle Co-op, which is over in Cincinnati and Northside, Queen City Bike, and then Tank and Metro. They're huge partners for Tri-State Trails, and they're very interested in what we're doing here. So yeah, our funding, this is like a brand new funding source, and that's one of the reasons why we've gotten quite a bit of press from this, and it's all thanks to the Jobs and Infrastructure Act. Thank you, President Biden. And so this money, it comes from the Governor's Highway Safety Association in partnership with the National Road Safety Foundation. So this is the second year that they've done it, and they provide $25,000 in unrestricted funding, and it has to go towards a youth safety mobility project in an underserved area. So yeah, we were one of 3. This year it was Colorado, Minnesota, and Kentucky. And yeah, so it feels really good to have Kentucky on the map in this way, that like we are investing in our young people and in safety and showing that it's a priority. So yeah, I thought Dayton fit that perfectly. So yeah, the funding is really exciting. I was on this panel discussion with the League of American Bicyclists, which is a longstanding bicycle advocacy organization. They have a summit every year in Washington, D.C., and they wanted me to talk about this funding because it's really a great resource where like the National Road Safety Foundation typically funds highway safety projects, not youth active projects. So it's just really unique and fun and awesome that we got it. So we're pretty proud of that. And yeah, so this is just a few slides about the press. Governor's Highway Safety Association put out a press release, and then the next slide shows that the Northern Kentucky Tribune picked it up. Then we put out our press release in the next slide WVXU picked it up, Tri-State Trails and KYTC, we put out a joint press release in the next slide, put that on our blog. People started to pick it up. And the next slide, Jay, these were all supposed to go one after the next, but this one we can stop on. This is something I'm really happy about. We got a quote from Governor Andy Beshear. And as you all know, he's a dad, so he loves to talk about his kids and his family. So he was really proud of this, and it's just really nice to have a spotlight from the governor on childhood safety. So yeah, these are some pictures from the past couple of years. We've done a pop-up bike shop, and we'll do want to have some flyers to promote the one that's happening this year. So the last couple of years, we've had a pop-up bike shop where we bring in like 6 or 7 volunteer mechanics, and they fix bikes of all shapes and sizes. We often get a lot of kids' bikes, which is great, but also adults bring their bikes in, all sorts of varieties of bikes, and we give out free lights, a light for the front and the rear, locks, which I was hearing today that's something that kids need, and then helmets. Hopefully we'll have enough to share. We have one of these pop-up bike shops, sometimes 2 every month. So our event is July 15th of this year. So the next photo is another picture of a pop-up bike shop. This was, I think I think this was 2021. I can't remember. And this was 2022. Yeah. So they're really fun events, and we get a lot done. And Dayton is honestly one of our busiest pop-up bike shop events. In the past 2 years, we've fixed over 30 bikes, and that's over average. So yeah, the next slide just kind of shows our Fair City from far above and where Gill Lynn is, and you all know that. So the next slide. This is Gill Lynn. So this kind of gives you an idea, good idea of the concrete we are going to use, which is pretty much everything you see there, with the exception of the small sidewalk that comes into the park. And we're considering using the sidewalk that heads out to that older basketball court, but that hasn't been in the plans until just recently. It's really just that big concrete pad near the flagpole and in front of the concession stand, the sidewalk leading up to that space, and a track around the shelter. So yeah, here's some pictures of Gill Lynn. Something that is in the works right now is we are getting quotes for some concrete repair over at the park. And I've gotten quotes from Gary Collins and Phil Wiseman. And they're both local folks that people know around here. They do excellent work. But here's a great example. You can see in this picture, there's a spot to the left and the right of the electric box there, where there's a pretty noticeable lip in the concrete. So even outside of just this project, it's a trip hazard. So there's about 1,500 square foot that they are, both quotes came back really similar actually. So it's gonna be tough to choose, and I would love some help from that, and maybe the park board. But yeah, that's kind of the next step, is to select the quote, get some concrete repaired. I don't have a picture of it in here, but on the side of the shelter that is closest to the flood wall, there's a metal plate right next to the shelter. I don't have a picture of it here, but it used to be a drain at some point, and then that drain I think busted, and it just had a plate put on it. I think the drainage plan was not going to work anymore, so that was just a temporary solution. But that will be a major part that is going to be completely jackhammered out and re-poured, and it'll be poured so that the water runs off into the grass and away from the shelter. So the concrete repairs will be really, really nice, and then give us a great surface to start on. We're going to do, we're going to power wash the whole thing. And so yeah, the July 15th event, we will have a temporary traffic garden, a demonstration of our plan on the ground. We'll have the pop-up bike shop, the traffic garden demonstration, and then lots of partners there. Red Bike will be there to talk about the Red Bike station that's down in Bellevue and encourage folks to go out and use it. Vision Zero will be there. I think they're going to have a bunch of t-shirts and fun stuff for kids. Trying to get Campbell County Library to come back, because I thought that event that they recently had was such a hit, and I think they just put like some cardboard out in the in the park, and it was adorable that the kids just were having a blast with imagining their world in this cardboard box. So I'd love for them to come out and do an activity on the same date. We've even talked about getting the city grill out, grilling some food, having some music. And I would love for it to be just like a fun community day. So we've already started to promote it at the elementary school. And I'm going to give social media a little bit more time before I start promoting it. Not very much time, but I'd like people to definitely have it on their calendars. But you're all invited to it, definitely. Please come out, put it on your calendars now, July 15th from 11 to 3. And yeah, so that's the Traffic Garden Project. So again, that's my email, Caitlin@tristatetrails.org. And yeah, and also it's National Bike Month. So that's great. And this week is National Bike to Work Week. Tomorrow this is just an open invite. And if you all have time, tomorrow, Tri-State Trails is one of the Beer for Humans nonprofits. They choose 4 nonprofits every month. And then you go and have a beer on a Wednesday night, and you get to vote on the nonprofit of your choice. So tomorrow we're having a big Bike Month celebration, and we're going to have a bunch of partners out, including Metro. And I love promoting this, but they're bringing a bus bike rack demo. So all of the buses, Tank and Metro, have bike racks on the front of the bus. And it's a little intimidating to stand in front of the bus while all of it's happening, to like learn how to do that. So they have this demonstration where you can practice using their equipment. But then, yeah, just a bunch of bike nerds out there talking about how to bike from A to B, and it'll be a big celebration. So that's tomorrow from 5 to 8. And then on Friday, we have our 14th annual Breakfast on the Bridge. And it would be great for any of you to come to that. That's free coffee and donuts and pastries, and lots of partners again, but it's set up on the Newport side of the Purple People Bridge. And it's just it's a big Bike Month celebration. So definitely come out.
What date is that?
That's on Friday. Yes, May 19th. And that is like the bike to work day. So if, I think your bike should be in good working condition.
I went to the bike shop last.
Yes. Cool. Well, that's all I have. I just wanted to give you all a little bit of information about what's happening over in the park. We have until November to finish this project. Like I mentioned, we're working on concrete repair now. I'm working with the Dayton Park Board to see if the park board budget can help us afford some of that concrete repair. And after the concrete is repaired, we'll have these designs to choose from and work with. I'm working with a muralist, a local woman who has done lots of murals around town. And she is working on a mural design for the concession stand, which will have a green monotone design on it. It will feature the Green Devil riding bike and lots of Dayton highlights on the concession stand. And we're planning on hosting a community day where people can come and help us paint that. So yeah, the park's going to be very transformed by the end of the year, and it's pretty exciting. So if you have any questions about where we are in the process or or how you can get involved, maybe just please reach out. And I have some flyers about the July 15th event. But that's all I have. Thank you very much.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is there somewhere we can see your design?
Yes, so we will have that very soon. I hope by the end of next week, we will have the 3 designs. And when I have those, I'll send them to you all for sure. And we're going to be writing about it on our blog on tristatetrails.org.
Do you have any that are kind of colorful? I can't remember. It's the one before Virginia.
Yeah,
Like-
it's very possible because there's almost always like some space in between the lanes, and there's like space that needs to be filled in with color. And so it can be colorful if that's
Who designs it?
There's an organization called Discover Traffic Gardens, and the person who is running the show there, her name is Fanula Quinn, and she's like the go-to woman for traffic gardens in the U.S. and in Europe. She's from Dublin, Ireland, but she.
It's a great name.
Yes, I know. I absolutely love it. So she's really, really great to work with, and her partner Rick Holt, her partner in the company, he lives in Hamilton, Ohio, so he's been able to come down and visit and see the site and be a great resource for us.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks.
Well, first of all, I think Caitlin, speaking as a city and speaking as the head of the council, we appreciate your energy. This is amazing. The things that you are doing that are bringing good news, good education to our children in the city of Dayton, Kentucky, and it's getting statewide news. That's so incredible. So we've always been a very bikeable city, very walkable city, and now that we're continuing to push that down to our children is commendable. So I thank you so much for your efforts in this, and we've always got your back on however we can help you. So thank you. I'll see you on July 15th. You're welcome. Next on the agenda would be we're going to open up the podium for comments regarding tonight's legislation. So if anybody has any comments they would like to address City Council administration for tonight's legislation, the podium is yours. It's a very agreeable audience tonight, and we're going to go ahead and close that. Next will be the first reading of ordinance 2022, number 3. Kristen, please.
This is an ordinance amending Chapter 110 of the City of Dayton, Kentucky Code of Ordinances, including the scheduled occupational license fees businesses owe to the city based on their total gross receipts.
A little background on this is that our occupational license ordinance has not been updated for many years. And working with the city staff, we've learned that there's some issues and some loopholes we wanted to fill to make sure that people were fully paying what they were owing under this ordinance. So here are the things that we've added to the ordinance to kind of update it. We added a definition of rental property owner to identify all people who own property that they rent out, whether it's under land contract, a trust, or some legal document. Other than that, we have some people saying, I have a land contract, I don't really own this property. Well, they do own the property until the land contract's over, and they're really leasing the property to somebody else, but they're trying to say that they're not. But we made it clear that those folks that are using land contracts saying they're not leasing property are covered under this ordinance. We've already done that in the rental inspection ordinance, so we just reflected that same language in this ordinance as well. We've also changed the application fee from $25 to $60, but we're no longer requiring applicants to guess what they're going to make in the first year. So in the past, we said it's $25 to do the application, then you got to guess what you're going to make. You got to pay that in addition. So we're just saying $60 up front, and you don't start paying all your gross receipts until the next year. So it's a lot cleaner, and it was kind of crazy. How does anybody know what they're going to be making in their first year of business? So this cleans that up and makes it easier for both staff and the people starting businesses. We also put an indication or put a new language in there saying that if they don't pay the $60 fee and apply before they start operating a business, then they're going to have to pay double to get an occupational license. Instead of $60, it'll be $120. So we often have to track down these people that are operating in the city without a license. They say, oh, sorry, Well, now, if we track them down, they're going to be paying double what they would have paid if they had not got their license before they started the business. We also changed the tax schedule for our gross receipts to reflect more what neighboring cities are charging. That starts at $25 for gross receipts up to $2,500, and then it's graduated up. The highest level is $6,000 if you make more than $10 million in gross receipts. So it's still pretty fair and equitable division among those categories. We also clarified that federal tax forms that must be submitted to support your gross receipts amounts. Not only do you have to submit our tax return, but you have to give us your IRS forms to show what your rental property income is or what your business our gross receipts are. So we're making sure that people are giving those forms. Sometimes they don't do it, and we can't determine whether those amounts they're saying they owe us are correct or not. And then we also have clarified the penalties imposed for failure to file a return or to make the required federal tax forms. And they added a criminal penalty for failure to make return, make false returns, pay any taxes that are owed, or to provide the required documentation. So we just made that clear that there is a criminal penalty if you don't do that. So those are the changes that are being made under this ordinance. Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Fawcett, for clarifying. Next on the docket would be the first reading of ordinance 2023 number 4. Kristen, please.
This is an ordinance adding a new section 3702 and amending section 3704 of the Dayton Code of Ordinances related to the payment, collection, and enforcement of the city's ad valorem property tax.
Again, this is a little bit of a cleanup ordinance. We are just clarifying the information that needs to be on our tax bills based on what the Kentucky statutes require. But an additional thing that we're adding, which is we're able to do because the General Assembly just passed a new law that allows us to do this. We've added a provision that allows unpaid code enforcement liens to be placed on tax bills as a separate item. And that allows us to make sure that we did that in the past, wasn't so sure that that was legal to do, so we stopped doing it. Now the state legislature has said it is legal to do it, and so we're going to start doing that again.
So just holding landlords more accountable, correct?
What's that?
Holding landlords more accountable, correct?
Right.
Thank you very much, sir. Next will be first reading of the ordinance 2023 number 5.
This is an ordinance prohibiting the operation of recycling operations and storage of recycling materials in residentially and commercially zoned areas of the city of Dayton.
So under our zoning ordinances, you cannot operate recycling facilities in residential or commercial areas, but it's only a civil fine if you do it. We want to make sure that people who are doing this are subject to criminal sanctions as well. So this ordinance makes it a Class A misdemeanor to be operating a recycling establishment in residential and commercial areas.
Any questions regarding first reading ordinance 2023 number 5? Anyone? Next on the docket, first reading ordinance 2023 number 6. Ms. Klein?
An ordinance adding a new section 72.15 titled Vehicles Carrying Recycling Materials to the Dayton Code of Ordinances.
So this updates our parking ordinances to make it clear that trucks, trailers, and other vehicles carrying recycled materials can only be parked on city streets for a maximum of 8 consecutive hours. So if they're working on a project during the day, that truck has to be gone after 8 hours. So if they park in trucks overnight that are loaded with scrapping materials, that will essentially be a violation of this parking ordinance.
Any questions for administration regarding 2023 number 6? No, we're going to move along then. 2023 number 7, Ms. Klein, please.
An ordinance adopting the city of Dayton, Kentucky's annual budget for the fiscal year running from July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024, and estimating revenues and resources and appropriating funds for the city to the full extent authorized by KRS .082, and interpretive case law.
Assistant City Manager Jared Barks will be presenting on this.
I know you're all very excited about this. It's the highlight of your year. So this year's budget is what we're going to be talking, or this coming year's budget is what we're going to be talking about. A lot of this is going to be familiar, and I'm not going to cover the same things that we covered last year because it's all essentially the same. If you're watching on our YouTube live, I put the link in the description for you to follow along. For people in the audience, there's copies over there on the table as well. And then I put the link on Facebook as well if people want to check it out. This is going to be the first reading, so there's going to be a comment period until the next meeting on June 6th, and that will be the second reading, and the council will potentially pass this ordinance. Okay. So I'm going to scroll through some pages here. Table of contents, we don't need to go over that. Page number 4 is going to be the actual ordinance that you're going to pass, and the corresponding numbers associated with that ordinance are going to be on the next page, page number 5. You were given a copy of the budget in your packet. However, that has been changed since you got it, and I left you all a copy on your tables there for you to look at for a larger copy of it. But it's essentially the same one that's in this packet. And that's just a bunch of numbers that don't really mean anything, so we're going to get down into the details and figure out what exactly they mean. The next few pages are just going to be talking about our financial policies, what kind of accounting that we use in the city. It's a bunch of boring accounting jargon that I will not bore you with today. Starting on page number 8, it's going to be the schedule, and that just shows kind of the process of how the budget is put together. There's a lot of meetings that goes on to make this budget document happen, including strategic planning sessions with the council, individual meetings with individual employees, department heads. Multiple times we go and discuss with them. And then the department heads also give us their priority lists of their needs for each of their respective departments based on priority. And then depending on the amount of money that we see coming in, an estimate is what we decide to fund at that time. But at the end of this process, it's up to the council, who has control of the purse strings of the city, to decide what they want to fund and what they do not want to fund. So we're going to scroll down further to fund descriptions, which is going to be page number 12. The city of Dayton has 5 different funds, the general fund being the largest. That's where all of our operating expenses come out of primarily. The other funds are going to be the Economic Development Fund, Park Fund, Municipal Road Aid, and the TIF districts. And these are all going to sound familiar to you. We talk about them pretty consistently. General fund is where all the taxes go into, all the fees go into. It's primarily where all of our money is, and all of our day-to-day operating expenses come out of there. Next fund is going to be Municipal Road Aid. The state of Kentucky provides funding to each city and county based on the gas tax. We receive approximately $118,000 per year, and that goes to streets and sidewalks. And it has its own fund. The next is the Park Fund. The city of Dayton has a 50 cent per $1,000 of evaluation of each parcel of land tax that goes directly to operating the 7 city of Dayton parks that we have. The next one is the TIF Fund. The city of Dayton has 3 different TIFs. The Manhattan Harbor on the river, Grant Park subdivision, and Red Knot homes on O'Fallon. These TIFs, each of these properties pay 100% of their property tax just like they would any other resident in the city. However, the city keeps 20% in the Manhattan Harbor, 50% in Grant Park, and 25% in Red Knot. So they each have different.
50% at Red Knot, it's 75-25 at Grant Park.
Okay. I got them mixed up, so.
80-20 Manhattan.
Thank you, Jay. So the city keeps a minority portion, and the developer gets the majority portion for a number of years, and that incentivizes them to develop the land, lay the roads, the lighting, the sewers, and all of that. Historical background of the city is going to be the same. The city hasn't changed in the last year, so we still have the same history. Economic indicators, I did want to call out this particular chart on the top of page 16. We calculate the personal income of the labor force in the city. The city recoups 2% of all payroll in the city. So if you multiply that, what we get by 50, that will tell you how much everyone made. So we can track that year by year. If you notice, in 2022, that number rose by 33%. So I'm not sure what happened there. There was a lot of hiring, we have a lot of development happening in the city. That could have been part of it as well. But we did see a 33% increase in payroll wages in the city of Dayton in that year. The next chart is going to show the top 10 employers. All top 10 are mostly from the year prior, and most of them did add positions. Dayton is unique in that we do not get the majority of our funds from payroll taxes. We get primarily our taxes come from property taxes. So that's a limitation that we have. We have a lot less employees than other cities in the area. Next page, number 17, is just going to be demographics, and it's just showing our demographics versus the state of Kentucky in the right-hand column. Number 18 is just going to be the organizational chart. If the community is curious how the city is laid out, who's superior to who in the structure of the city. Each department gives me, starting on page 19, a list of their priorities for their department. So you can peruse through those and look and see what each department are hoping to get done in the next year. The next page, 21, is going to be city council goals. On May 11th, the city council met for, I believe it was 8 hours, and heard, I see some of you shaking your head, heard all the department heads and community members talk about what they would like to see. And so the council vote essentially for what they want the priorities to be in the next year, and that is listed on that page. Okay, now we're going to start getting to the financials of the city. On page 23, this top chart is going to show the 3 largest income generators for the city of Dayton. Those are the same as last year. And this does not include grant revenues, I should say. Property tax, occupational tax, and insurance premium tax are the 3 largest income generators for the city. That's like any other city in the state of Kentucky. Those are going to be the top 3 generators of income. But like I said before, what makes Dayton unique is that we get more property tax than any other tax income. So we'll start with insurance premium tax, which is that yellow line. We're following the trend line. We're increasing year over year, which is like what we want to see. And that accounts for approximately 20% of the income for the city. The next one is going to be the occupational tax. That is going to be business license tax and payroll tax. So this employee tax and employer tax. In this chart, you're going to see a large spike in what we anticipate coming in, and that's mostly due because we have higher wages, which I talked about before, and we did have a tax correction with the council who decided to raise that tax rate in the last year. The green line is going to be property tax, and if you can see, that one has dipped a bit, which is not something that property tax does. It should increase year over year. Why it has dipped in this case is because we're taking the TIF funds completely out of the property tax, and we're not putting them in the general fund. We're depositing them directly into the TIF account versus the general fund, and then the TIF account will pay the general fund. It's just an accounting. It's going to make it easier on the staff to do it this way. And it's how it was done in the past. It made it seem like we were getting more property tax than we actually were, because a lot of that was just going directly to the developer and was not going to the city. So this is going to be a truer number to the amount of property tax that we're actually getting. Does that make sense?
Can I ask a question? I've
Sure.
asked it in the past with the TIF. I know by law, we're only allowed to increase the property tax income by 4% per year. But the TIF money, is the TIF property value included in that at 100% or at 20%?
You have both. The TIF has some IRBs, and that is exempt. So that's owned by the city during the term of the IRB. But there are other properties that are in the TIF zone that are fully taxed because the single-family residences, the other properties that aren't part of the IRB. So those are tax revenues.
Right.
The other ones are pilot revenues. So you get a little bit of both in the TIF. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the focus really is on the property tax. I mean, if we add a $50 million building on the river, the PVA puts that in at $50 million. And the calculations are made based on $50 million. But actually, we're only able to keep the tax on 10 million of that.
It actually doesn't show it on the PVA records because it's an exempt property. The city technically owns that property and we're exempt from taxes. So what we're getting is a pilot payment. We're not, it's a contractual payment. It's the same amount that we'd be getting in taxes, but it doesn't show up on the tax roll because it's owned by the city. Does that make sense? It's a little confusing. The IRBs, they're basically owned by, the property's owned by the cities during the term of that, and they're basically leased to the developer during the term of that IRB. Once that's over, then they become part of the tax rolls, but they're exempt.
So
Those
they don't
properties
show
are
up
all
on the
exempt.
PVA report.
What's that?
So they don't show up on the PVA report.
That's correct. They show up as exempt.
Okay.
And so we're getting the money and we're getting 20% of the same amount of money, but it's coming in the form of pilot payment in lieu of taxes instead of actual tax revenue.
And Jay, do the schools negotiate their own pilot?
They did. And they negotiate it and they send their own invoices. And we send it on our behalf and all the other taxing districts. And that goes into the TIF fund. And the developer gets their 80% and we get 20% of our taxes back and the county gets 20% of their taxes back. The rest of those funds all go to the developer. There's other districts.
And I'm glad you've broken that out in the new budget design that you have, because in the past, I think it overinflated
It did,
what our
yeah.
income was, and then you'd have a big, huge chunk going back to the developer.
Right, but it still showed as revenue, and then it would drop down. You'd have to go down to the expenses to see how it would, then you'd have to do calculations to really see what the city was actually getting out of that. So this is going to be a truer number in that regard.
And that's why I said, now this number will be the one that we can base the 4% on.
Correct.
Have
And
you got the PVA report yet for this year?
What's that?
The PVA update for this fiscal year?
I haven't gotten it yet. I'm actually meeting with Justin Otto tomorrow to go over the current TIF numbers. And I think that we had to wait till tomorrow because the numbers weren't supposed to be ready until like this week. So hopefully they're done. I'll get them shortly.
Thank you.
Joe, to further with your question, it is beneficial to the property tax bottom line if more property is added to the overall valuation. So if we get more and more valuation out of homes and new buildings, then people will start seeing their property taxes go down. But if we continue with IRBs in the future, I mean, this is just a consideration, they are essentially exempt from the tax roll and you do not see the benefit of those tax bills going down, which you probably want to see.
That's correct.
The next page is just going to be a breakdown of all of the categories for revenues in the city. Taxes 37%, licenses and permits 47%, and then you have some other minor funds. This is what you're going to see in other cities as well. And then below that, it's just going to show those three top income generators and how much percentage of the revenues that they have. Next page, 25, is going to show all the expected grant revenues. The city has multiple grants open, which all of you know. And then below that, it's going to show the expected revenue from operational expense or income, which is going to be taxes, the city levies and all of that, versus grant income. So in the overall budget, we're going to have 45% of our revenue come from grant income from the federal government. Next couple of pages are going to be the revenue schedule showing what we anticipate to get out of each of these accounts. You're going to see a slight dip in the taxes category, and that's from that property tax correction where we're going to be depositing in the TIF versus in the general fund. So that's going to be slightly down, but otherwise, most of these are going to be going up, which is a good sign. Are there any questions about that? Okay, we're going to move on to expenses if no one has any questions about revenues. This is also a chart that I like to pay special attention to every year. The top blue line is going to be how much we budget in our revenues, expenses, how much we anticipate spending. And the green line is showing how much we actually spent in any one given year. So as you can see, the green line is pretty stable. It's staying in the $4 million to $5 million range. That's because these are how much it costs to operate the city. And the blue line, as you can see, is exponentially going up. Those are the grant matches that the city is taking on. So we will eventually have to pay for those bills. Those will have to come out of the fund balance. But that's just a chart that's going to show you how much more the city has earmarked the fund balance for those specific projects. And eventually we will have to pay them. But we're going to have to wait until that grant closes out and the project actually gets completed, which can take multiple years. So that's why that line is continually going up, because those grants are stacking on top of one another. Okay. This is a graph we should be proud of. It should look familiar because I talked about it a lot last year. Each of those associated colored kind of stacks are going to be what it costs to operate each of the departments of the city. Green is admin, yellow public works, blue police, red is fire department, and gray is professional services. The black line that you see near the top is going to be how much operational revenue the city took in. So as you can see from, well, I didn't have the corresponding years there, but from 2022, or I guess it was around 2019 to 2021, the city was spending more in operations than it was bringing in. So it was running at a deficit at that point. Last year, we did a lot of work to scale down the budget in order to pull in more in revenues than we actually spent out. Last year was the first time that the city did that in quite a while. So I'm proud to say that this year, we also will be working in a surplus of about $55,000. So we will be generating more income than we will be spending out, and that money will be going toward our fund balance, which is essentially the city's savings account. So we can be using that money for future capital expenditures like police cars, a public works building, things like that. That's what you need to be building that savings account up to be able to afford projects like that. Are there any questions? Okay. Next is going to show what each particular department, how much we anticipate that department is going to cost. Not really that much to talk about there. You can see that capital spending there toward the bottom on page 31, $4.28 million is just capital spending, and that's going to be all that earmarked money for all of those grant matching that we have and all those grant projects. So that expenditure is going to include both the city funds that we have to put toward that and the federal funds. So not 100, the city isn't paying 100% of that cost. 80% of that the federal government is going to pay. The next page, it shows kind of a highlight of how the budget is broken down in a pie chart. So as I said, about half of it is capital spending, half of it is to operate the city on a day-to-day basis. And then I've broken down the capital spending down further to show you where exactly this money is coming from. So of that capital spending, that $4.2 million, 80% of it is going to be federal funds. 16% of that is going to be the ARPA funds that we received a couple years ago, American Rescue Act funds, and then 4% is coming from the city's budget, which constitutes about $220,000. So The next part is going to be the capital investment plan. That's going to show you all the major projects the city is taking on in the next year. So that first page on page 33 is going to be a breakdown of all the open grants that the city has, showing you the total project cost, the grant award, which is going to be awarded from the federal government, and then the 20% match that the city is taking on, and then the tabulated totals there at the bottom. I also have a description for the community to look at to see exactly what's going on with each of those grants and what the project actually is. So they can look there to see what the city has agreed to do. Notable spending is not going to be capital improvement. Oh, I did want to call out one specific one of those capital spending lines. They're all going to be grants except for one. It's going to be the very bottom, police vehicle and equipment. The city or the police department requested a new vehicle with the proper equipment that goes with it. And then they're also going to get all new body cams for the officers and brand new tasers. Their equipment was outdated and it needed to be, they need to get new equipment to replace it. So we have a line item specifically for them to get that equipment that they need. Notable spending isn't going to be equipment, but it's going to be specific things that the city is taking on for the first time or is a little different than what we've done in the past. The first one is going to look familiar. It's going to be the license inspection for the hiring of the new employee to do the inspections for rental properties and license plates and any other inspections that we need. He or she will be working with Cassie in the code enforcement department. And we have allotted $40,000. 100% of the proceeds that come from those rental inspection fees goes directly to this individual. We cannot spend that money anywhere else. So it's earmarked specific for that department. Next, we have put a line item for an additional crew member for Public Works. This will bring the total department up to 5 employees versus the 4 that they have now. The benefit of doing this is now they can break out into 2 separate crews. So one crew can be doing mowing while another one is on another job. They don't all have to be at one location like they do now. Next is going to be the Ramey Burton building. The city committed $300,000 of the ARPA funds toward this building. A lot of other partners have also put in money, the Catalytic Fund being one of them. As part of that deal, the city required that building to have 5 of the units, the apartment units being affordable costs. So those will be market rate, I guess. We've already spent $100,000 of that $300,000. We've written them a check and they've already started that. The final $200,000 will be in September and December of this year. And I believe for the final allotment, the last $100,000, they have to show us a finished project, certificate of occupancy, and all that before they get the last bit.
That's correct.
Community Betterment Fund, this is how we have been funding our events. Last year, we started with our Final Friday events. We showed movies at Monument Park. We provided micro grants for businesses to have entertainment at their venues. That went well, so we doubled that from $10,000 in this current budget to $20,000 in the next budget, so we can do more of those types of things. Next page is going to be the non-major funds, so that's the municipal road aid, the parks, the TIF, all of those. Those look pretty standard, not much has changed. The TIF is going to see more because we're going to be taking more money out. The properties have increased in their value because there's more infrastructure there. So you're going to see more money coming in and out of that account. Park fund capital expenditures. The Sergeant Park has a recreational trail grant that is open right now. So there's a grant open for signage, surveying and everything like that. So that's still pending. We have done the surveying work for that, but the remainder of the work is still yet to be done. So we had to earmark some of that money. That is a grant as well, so it's an 80% match to the 20% that the city has put in. That 20% will come out of park funds and not out of the general fund. The DBA, Dayton Business Assistance Program, we have, which I think is going to be also decided tonight, added a couple of recommendations. One, that the rental assistant program go down from 3 years to 1 year. A lot of our storefronts are full now. We don't really see the need to have the 3-year program. It's not the incentive that we feel that we need right now. We really want to focus on getting first floor residential spaces in commercial buildings to transfer over to actual commercial space, to a lot more storefronts on the avenue. So we're hoping to shift money from the rental assistance to this commercial conversion program. And the last is going to be $50,000 out of the Economic Development Fund going toward building demolition. These are blighted properties that the city is demolishing. This is essentially a slush fund because a lot of this money, be it liens or whatever, eventually comes back to the city. Last thing I want to talk about is the fund balance of the city, and that's essentially that savings account that we talk about. So I'm going to call out the bottom chart. So you're going to see the beginning estimated how much we anticipate is going to be in the bank account. So you can see in the general fund, we anticipate a starting amount as of July 1, 2023 being 2.4 million. And at the end of the fiscal year, being June 30th, 2024, that will be under 1.2 million. So over 50%, 50.3%, we anticipate that money no longer being there if, in fact, all of the grants were to be closed out, which I really don't think that they will be. But we have to earmark that money anyway. So that is if 100% of all of our grants and we spend all the money that we think we're going to spend, that amount will essentially be halved. So your city savings account will dip by 50% once all those grants. I will say a large portion of that is American Rescue Act funds. So we have to spend that money for these sorts of things. But it is something to pay attention to when you are agreeing to take on more grants or you're agreeing to purchase more equipment or want to start a new project or something. You need to be very mindful of the fact that your fund balance is dipping. We also have to keep a certain amount in there for a rainy day fund in case an emergency happens or something terrible happens. Just like any of you in your individual bank accounts, you're going to have your rainy day fund, your savings account in case something bad goes wrong. Cities also do the same thing. We're verging on hitting that limit to where we cannot go below that amount any longer. All the rest of the accounts look pretty sound. They're essentially, all these are pass-through accounts essentially, so they're going to have money coming in, money going out. They typically stay pretty low. You don't have to have those same savings accounts in all those minor funds that you do in the general fund. So the fund balance deficit, even though the operational expenses, we are having a $55,000 surplus, the budget overall is in a deficit. We are anticipating going down that $1.1 million, and that's because of all that grant matching that's earmarked in the budget. Of that, 72% is the American Rescue Act funds, and then 28% of that is coming out of the city's funds that they raised from taxes and all of that. Are there any questions about that?
I kind of hate to say. It sounds like we're stretching to pay off all these grants.
We're not stretching to pay. You have the funds now, but to do
But-
anything additional,
Yeah.
I would be very cautious.
Okay. So at what point did we take all these grants that we would have to take over $1 million to pay them off at some point? Like was that kind of a mistake at some point? And
I wouldn't say it's a mistake. It's the council's prerogative to prioritize projects. They saw these as worthwhile projects that they wanted to fund.
okay.
I think prior to getting the American Rescue Act funds, I'm not sure how they intended to pay for these. It's only because of that funding that we can follow through with these grant projects. I think it's likely because the grants were not closed out. So whoever were the decision makers at the time continued to see this balance go higher and higher in the bank account because they hadn't had to spend that money out yet. So they continued to commit to all more and more grants that just continue to stack on top of each other without realizing that you have to earmark these year after year to make sure that you have the funds to be able to pay for them every year, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Okay. I would also, since we're on the topic, if you do want to take on additional grant, be mindful about the fact that some projects increase the costs for your city after the fact. There's cleaning costs, there's what have you, repair costs of all this new infrastructure that you're putting in, and then you're putting more and more weight onto your budget to have to handle all of those projects and to keep them in good shape. Okay. So the last thing, which is kind of what we're talking about right now, are just considerations for future decision-making in the budget process for future years. The city of Dayton is experiencing a construction boom right now, due largely to the TIF districts, mainly Manhattan Harbor. This has caused a bubble in the intake of payroll taxes. We're receiving this influx of payroll tax because of all of this construction going on, all these individuals and these construction companies coming in and they're paying our payroll tax. When they go away, how do we supplement that income? So we need to be mindful of that in the future. The city has heavily utilized ARPA funds and its fund balance to apply for grants and to match them. At the end of this process, the city's fund balance will be heavily depleted at historic lows, verging on the minimum threshold that we need to keep for a city. This will limit the city's ability to purchase equipment and needed building improvements in the future. We're going to have to figure out how we can get additional income to do these projects once this fund balance is gone. The city has moved forward with the design phase of phase 4 of Riverfront Commons project. This grant will be utilized for the design portion of the project. However, at this time, the city does not have any plans to raise capital needed to actually construct that project. So we're committing $80,000 for the design of the project, but we don't have the funds to actually construct it. Construction costs are rising exponentially. Many of the quotes the city has received for large projects such as Riverfront Commons are no longer valid. They're almost double what they originally were quoted as being. The city will need to find supplemental income to be able to construct the projects it has committed to. So the city has, in those charts, we've earmarked the funding for those original quotes that came in. But now that we're quoting them again, now that construction prices are so much higher, we don't have the gap funding in order to actually make those projects happen. So now we have to go out and search for more funding, which is delaying the projects even more. So just something to consider. And the last thing I'll say, and that's something that the fire and police talk about a lot, alongside the construction boom, the city is also seeing exponential growth in population. The city will have to face the increase in employees needed to handle this growth. Fire, police, and public works will require additional employees and equipment to properly serve these new citizens. The cities will need to allot funding for these positions in future budgets. At this time, the year-over-year increase in revenues will not be enough to cover these costs. That's all I have. Are there any questions?
Back to the grants. So kind of during what years were the bulk of these grant commitments made?
The earliest one, I believe, is from 2016, and they stretch all the way until this current year that we're in now.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parks. Kind of want to take a look at the packet you just received and think about what we received 5-6 years ago was spreadsheets of Excel numbers with absolutely no definition of where we were going, where money was coming from. It was a puzzle for anybody to put together. So I really appreciate Mr. Parks and his organization, his skills on putting this together in nice pie charts, colors that make sense to us. Although his message is not as much fun as others, we do appreciate all the work that he's done and the professionalism that he's brought to this this presentation every year. Thank you, sir.
And to point out, you brought up that Dayton is we don't get much in payroll taxes compared to most cities, percentage-wise. But there are a lot of cities that have a large percentage in payroll tax, and like where you came from, if a big employer goes out, they're hosed. They're in big trouble. Whereas we depend on the property taxes here in town, which are much more stable. And I think that's a big benefit for us as far as long-term planning. Depending on payroll alone is sometimes pretty sketchy. We saw that 15 years ago, 20 years ago here when Rate Act pulled out. So I appreciate that you're emphasizing on the property values, and that's why I keep having questions on the TIF and the property tax and the PVA, because we're basically a residential community.
Any other questions, comments, concerns regarding the first reading of the budget ordinance 2023 number 7? Thank you guys for your participation. Next would be the first reading ordinance 2023 number 8. Ocho. An ordinance amending section 3808 of the Dayton Court of Ordinances related to appeals of code enforcement citations. Ms. Klein, please.
This is an ordinance amending section 3808C1 of the Dayton Code of Ordinances related to appeals of code enforcement citations.
So background on this is that this is a cleanup ordinance. I guess the state law changed, used to say that it was 10 days for someone to respond to a notice of citation. That was changed to 7 days. So we have to change our ordinance to reflect what the state law says, which is 7 days, not 10 days. That's what this is doing.
Thanks, sir.
So the state ordinance is 7 days.
State statute, yeah. I think originally it was 10 days. At some point after that was enacted, it got changed to 7 days, and ours still said 10 days. So we want to make sure we reflect what the state statute says. It has to be 7 days.
I remember when previous council and administration changed it from 7 to 10 because some people were saying they weren't getting the mail was slowing down. By the time they got the mail, it was already 7 days. But you're saying the state has changed it to 7 days.
It's clearly, the state statute clearly says 7 days. So
Okay.
we want to reflect that.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next is the first reading of ordinance 2023 number 9. Ordinance amending the city of Dayton, Kentucky's annual budget for the fiscal year running from July 1st, 2022 through June 30, 2023, and estimating revenues and resources and appropriation of funds for the city to the full extent authorized by KRS 82.802 in interpretive case law. Ms. Klein, please.
This is an ordinance amending the City of Dayton, Kentucky's annual budget for the fiscal year running from July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023, and estimating revenues and resources and appropriating funds for the city to the full extent authorized by KRS 82082 and interpretive case law.
This is an ordinance amending the current budget that we're in now. We just did a couple minor changes in the expenses. We ran a really tight budget this year, and we're seeing, seeing that we're getting really close here at the end. So I just added $20,000 to general government and public works in order to make sure that we're not crossing over what we're supposed to be. The last one is the TIF payment. This was because we brought in the property taxes for the TIF district into the general fund and then paid them out to the TIF districts. We just paid them a little more than we had anticipated because the property value is going up and all of that. So I raised that by $13,000.
Any questions from Mr. Barks regarding? Thank you very much, sir. Next on the agenda, we move right along to orders and resolutions. Order resolution number 16 Romeo. It's a long one. Municipal Road Aid Agreement. An order resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a municipal aid co-op program contract between the city of Dayton, Kentucky and the Commonwealth of Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, Department of Rural and Municipal Aid for the fiscal year beginning of July 1st of 2023, as provided in the Kentucky Revised Statutes, and accepting all streets referred to therein as being streets that are part of the incorporated city. Ms. Klein, please.
This is an order and resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a municipal aid co-op program contract between the city of Dayton, Kentucky and the Commonwealth of Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, Department of Rural and Municipal Aid for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2023, as provided for in the Kentucky Revised Statutes, and accepting all streets referred to therein as being streets that are a part of the incorporated city.
This is a contract the state makes us sign every year in order to get municipal aid funding. This year, we're receiving $118,000 from the state.
Any questions regarding order resolution 16 right now? Do I have a motion to accept order resolution 16, Romeo?
So moved.
Moved by member Neary. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Volter has made a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Next is order resolution 17, Romeo. Ms. Clyde.
Forgot to turn my microphone on. This is a municipal road aid resolution designating the roads for the municipal road aid. This is an order and resolution identifying all roads in the city of Dayton maintained by the city as part of its road system for purposes of municipal road aid funding.
So this is related to the previous one. We haven't had to do this during my time here, but I guess every few years, the highway department makes us identify all the streets in our city that are applicable for municipal aid. So they hired the NKADD to do this for all the cities. And this list was what they generated. I had Mike Yeager look over it. There are 3 that weren't on there because we share it with Bellevue and Fort Thomas. So we added it in there, but they're saying that it's not really covered. But I put it in there just in case. So these identify the roads that municipal aid covers.
Is 6th Avenue included in that?
Yes.
Since it's a state route?
They did include it in there. So it's in the list.
Thank you.
Do we have any further questions regarding 17, Romeo? Do I have a motion to accept 17, Romeo?
I'll make the motion.
Member Neiman's made the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by member Neary. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Last piece of business for order resolutions tonight. Number 18 Romeo. Ms. Clyde, please, if you would.
Amending the Dayton Business Assistance Program policies and regulations, adding a new commercial conversion grant section to the Dayton Business Assistance Program policies and regulations to reflect changes needed to achieve the city's strategic goals.
As Jared mentioned during his budget presentation, as our program evolves and our strategic goals change, we want this program to reflect that. So we've reduced the number of years that you can participate in the rental program, but we are definitely emphasizing converting existing buildings that were once used for commercial space and are now being used for residential, to convert those back to commercial. We have a lot of people who want to come to Dayton right now. We just don't have a place to put them. So we're trying to encourage those people who have these spaces that were once commercial spaces to reutilize them in that manner. And once they do, they'll become, these are all pre-existing non-conforming uses as residential. They're not supposed to be residential on the first floor, commercial spaces under our current zoning code. So once they convert to commercial, they're back to commercial under our zoning code, and they cannot be used as residential in the future.
Thank you for the explanation of 18 Romeo. Do we have any other questions or comments or concerns regarding?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
How did they all get residential? I mean, like, what was the original code when you had a storefront? Was it
So
just sort of
before we had a
loose?
zoning code, they started using them as residential. So,
Okay,
When's
so
that go
there
back
just
to?
wasn't anything to stop
right,
it. Okay.
back in the heyday,
What was the heyday? Give me a year.
I would say the 1880s, the 90s, early 1900s. I mean, all those storefronts were commercial spaces.
Right.
A lot of them were bars, but you had 3 or 4 grocery stores, and then as people left the city, they became vacant, and these landlords said, instead of having a vacant storefront, I'm just going to put somebody in there.
Okay.
Then
there
we
was no
adopted a zoning
code.
code, and once we did that, they were already in there, so
Right.
they're grandfathered in, as
Okay.
they say.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions regarding 18 Romeo? Do I have a motion to accept 18 Romeo?
So move.
Mayor Volter's made the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Neiman. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? No nays. Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Now everyone's favorite part of the month is the department head report, which brings out the big wheel. And I know Cassie doesn't like it. She asked me to stop it, but Chief Atkins said he wanted to keep going. So we're gonna go ahead and spin the wheel tonight to see who gets to go first, and that means that person gets to go home first. Oh, Chief. Fire. Hey,
Thank you, sir.
you're very welcome.
You all have my report, a couple of things just to kind of touch on. We did do our project prom that we do every year with Bellevue. Right before their prom, we go out, we simulate a car wreck and show us cutting somebody out of the car, the police, simulate arresting someone. We do have a DOA. It's just kind of get the kids in the mindset before prom. If you notice, we had a CPR class. We didn't quite get the attendance we hoped for. We'll wait a few months and try to do another one of those. We've been really hitting the training hard as the weather's broke, and the school system, Dayton School, has been gracious enough to let us use the API building and the condos or the townhomes they've acquired. So we've been able to get into a lot of training. We've actually had Newport to come down and do some training with that as well. So we'll continue to use that until they start tearing those down. Other than that, I really don't have a whole lot to say. We did make a hire. I can say this now, I couldn't before, but we had someone that I can actually say we poached from someplace instead of getting poached from. We had a Covington firefighter that has chosen to come back to us. He was with us for several years. He went to Covington a few years ago and has made the decision to come back. So I can say we poached for a change instead of getting poached. So we'll be at 14 because we are losing one to Cincinnati. So we're going to be at 14 again. My senior captain, Adam Hall, is retiring at the end of July. So we'll be trying to place him plus the one that we're still short. So it's an ongoing battle. Everybody you talk to is struggling to get people. But I want to express my appreciation that the cities continue to work with us and allow our budgets to go through, and that helps.
Yeah, I don't
Helps a lot.
know if the council knows this, but you requested 5% increase this year.
Yes.
We were able to, under our current budget that Chair just talked about, we were able to meet that and to give them the 5% they requested.
Yep, and with the CPRS rates dropping. I can't think of the gentleman's name right now, the Bellevue school system. they're really, they've been instrumental in doing that for years, and they just kind of invited the police and the fire to come in and take part. So it's not that we won't, it's just the school system in Dayton has never done that. So, because they do, I think they do some stuff other than just having us there and police there. They do some presentations within the school system itself, within the school, before they actually come out and we do our thing. So that's a school system thing, not a police thing or a fire thing. We're happy to do one if they were ever, to get it together. Kids seem to really take to it. And if it makes a difference for one, it's worth it.
I, for one, excited about, not excited, but actually kind of sad, but excited for Adam on his retirement. Good for him. Congratulations to him for the.
Yeah.
How many years has he served?
He's going to have, I think, 24 or 25.
Yeah, he's
We call
always
him
been
Mr.
impressive.
Bellevue. I mean, he came from Bellevue. He's a Bellevue boy. Started out in Bellevue, and then when the merger happened, he just kind of came over. He's the last one from Bellevue in the merger. So he's got 25. The other two captains all have 20 plus. I have 26. So I mean, you're going to see some changes over the next couple of years. So Adam's, it's well deserved. He's our senior captain, so it's a lot of years, a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge of the cities. I mean, he could run in the cities, so he knows all the alleys. That's knowledge that sometimes you just can't teach. So,
Right.
So yeah.
Well, congrats to him.
Yeah.
He had a lot to the atmosphere of the firehouse, and that is one of the reasons I imagine that you're bringing people in. Is you guys have a great family there in the house.
It's and that's one of the things we try to preach is it's the atmosphere. It's it's a job, but these guys spend 24 hours at a time together. So we try to make it as fun as we can for being a job, knowing that these guys can go out in the middle of the night on a fire or on a horrible call, and they come back, and it's not just a job.
Yeah.
So
I, for one, and I believe speak for everyone, we appreciate it.
thank you, sir.
Anybody else? Questions? Chief? Thanks, sir. Have a good evening. All right, here goes the wheel. Oh, he's so close to code enforcement, but he came up police. Lieutenant Baldwin. We did it just for equality. Wanted to make sure everybody was equal on the wheel.
Good evening. Sure, Chief Hatfield will give everybody a copy of April's report. Any questions? Okay. We have a few things going on. This Friday, Sergeant Lynn Kugel will graduate from APS, Academy of Police Division down in Richmond. 3-week course.
Keep close to the microphone.
I'm
there.
sorry. I was saying Sergeant Lynn Kugel will be graduating from APS class down in Richmond this Friday. It's the Academy of Police Supervision. They learn a lot there. Adversity, situational leadership, and so forth. It's a very good program. I had opportunity to attend it many years ago, but it's still a very good program. We also just received our letter stating that we are fully accredited. We just went through an accreditation process. That started back in, I must say I started working on it back in November, I believe. So I had a lot of days in the office preparing accreditation. All of us took a big part of different areas of it and so forth. But we are fully accredited again, so that's a major plus. Some of you are aware that we do have a parking app now, which is in our vehicles. Instead of doing the little handwritten citations, now we are able to do everything on our computers, generate the tickets a lot faster, and we're able to pretty much keep better control of them than what I felt like we were doing before. And actually, the city actually has full view of those every day to see what we're producing out there. Any questions?
Any questions for Lieutenant Baldwin?
Yeah, he didn't look very good today, so.
And we just congratulated Adam Hall for his 24 years. We just celebrated your 27th year.
Yes,
Yeah, that's amazing. So talk about people who know the streets and know the alleys. Lieutenant Baldwin is the poster child for that. So thank you for all your service for our community, sir.
thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Well, since Public Works is out, I guess Cassie wins the next wheel spot. Way to win.
You have a copy of my report. A couple things. We have been working very hard on the vacant list, and today we went two more vacant properties sold at auction. So that list is kind of dwindling down.
There's there were a lot of competition for those properties too.
Sure.
They bid them up.
They went for a lot of money.
Yeah, so Dayton's hot right now.
And we did get somebody for the rental license inspector position. And I guess we'll announce him next,
Week.
yeah.
Yep.
And that's about it, really.
We had a code enforcement board meeting last night here, and somebody came before the board who has not gotten occupational licenses, has not paid his code fines, and for about 10 or 12 properties. And
How many years?
many years since I've been here, and I don't know, Cassie as well. And thanks to Alex, he did a great job prosecuting him. The code board came back and found him liable for each one of the properties that he failed to pay fees on and code fines on. So I'm sure it might get appealed, but it was a well done job by Cassie, Alex, and then Angie Benia, our assistant city clerk, also did a nice job testifying as well. So
Sure.
We have a great team. We really have an amazing team that you and Alex and Jay and Angie, we're all making sure that Dayton is moving in the right direction. So I
Yes.
appreciate y'all.
Yes.
Seriously,
Any questions? I appreciate that. Thank you.
of course.
Last night it was good. It went smooth. Thank you, Alex and Jay and Angie, and it all worked out great. So
Any questions for our code enforcement officer?
Yes, are you getting any or many citizen reports via the online reporting form?
we are.
Okay, good.
It's hit or miss. Some days we'll get 3, and then I'll go a week and not get any. But yeah, we do get, people use that. Yes, it's
I mean,
great.
you see a complaint on Facebook, not just on code enforcement, policing, and everything else. I want to make sure that people know that that online tool is available even anonymously.
Sure.
yes, it's anonymous.
It is anonymous. We have unless you put your email on the email section, we have no idea who you
Right.
are. Phone numbers. We do get a lot of calls also. And you can make an anonymous call. But yeah. Yeah, I would prefer that instead of putting it on Facebook, because it's kind of like my cousin said this, and I just don't think I think it's easier just to call, and then sometimes you can get an answer right away, instead of you get 15 different answers. So yeah, if anybody has any questions about anything, just call or send in a, anonymous complaint.
I was just curious if it was still being utilized.
It
or not.
is.
Yeah.
It is, yes.
Cool.
Yes. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Patterson. That concludes the wheel and also Department Director's monthly reports, which moves right along to the City Administrator's report. Mr. Fawcett.
Thank you, Mayor. As Cassie mentioned, we have hired a new license inspector. We'll start next week. We're meeting with him on Thursday to kind of figure out logistics on when he'll work and when we'll do inspections. And we're real excited to get that person employed. We struggled. We had somebody, it didn't work out, and we've struggled to find some folks. It's a very competitive field, just like police and fire. These code inspectors are being gobbled up by cities. So they're very hard to find qualified people. So we're looking forward to working with him and getting this program off the ground. Also, I spoke to Paul Darple today, and he told me that they've gotten a quote for construction here on this project from one contractor, and they're waiting for one or two more this week. So they're moving forward with the construction of the Berry Street connector, and I'm excited to see what kind of numbers they get. The numbers they got today was a little higher than expected, so they're trying to get two more quotes. And finally, some good news I heard this week was that KYTC is not just going to repave Kentucky 8 from Mary Ingalls to Clay, but it's going to go all the way through downtown, 6th Avenue, all the way to Bellevue, and into Newport, I guess, to where they stopped near the levee last year. So Kentucky Route 8, they have already done Mary Ingalls Highway from Clark Street to Fort Thomas. Now they're going to do from Clark Street into Dayton and Newport. So that's good news. That's all I have.
I like good news. I like you delivering good news. It's nice. Do you have any questions for Administrator Fawcett? All right, now it brings us to the illustrious side of comments from the crowd. So anybody who would like to address City Council, you're more than welcome to for any reason. Please state your name, your address, and keep the comments within 2 minutes if possible.
Hi, my name's Barb Blankenship. I'm here on behalf of my mother who resides in Dayton. She's 86 years old. She lives at 332 10th Avenue here in Dayton. She's been here since the early 60s. And I just wanted to find out for her what is going on as far as the development behind her house, behind the 300 block of 10th Avenue they're building. They say it's Silver Street. I grew up in Dayton. I've never heard of Silver Street, but it's on Silver Street. And they're having access to where they're building on Edwards Street. So I'm just wondering, I've always been told that there's a designated alley behind the 300 block of 10th Avenue. And I was hoping the city would open that alleyway where the residents on 10th Avenue, the 300 block, could have access to the back of their property.
Right. There is an alley that's a paper alley. It's not been improved.
It's never been
Improved. It's got trees growing in it. We don't have any plans to open that alley. It's not in our budget. It would cost a lot of money to construct a new alley.
So who is going to clean up that property there as far as fallen debris?
What property you're talking about?
Well, the property behind my mother's house.
The gentleman who's building the house there, it's his responsibility, but it's his property.
Okay, so how would I address him as far as him moving that earth toward my mother's house?
I mean, he's allowed to move earth as long as he doesn't damage it, as long as that doesn't do any damage to your property.
Okay, so I have to wait till he's completed to find out if he's going to move this big mound of dirt that's.
I mean, you can talk with him. It's Tim Recton is who is building the house.
Tim Recton?
Yeah. He owns the land down below as well, off of Tim, and he owns that lot up there on Silver, which is up. You go.
Okay, so is there a designated alley?
There is an alley that runs behind the houses on 10th Avenue, but it's not an improved alley. It's a paper alley.
It's a paper alley.
It's just shown on plats as an alley, but
say we have a shed, and a very old shed that was built in the 60s. It's been fallen down. So I have to carry that out piece by piece down the hill, down 26 steps.
you can use the alley. It's public. It's a public right of way. It's just not.
Well, how do you get to it?
Well, that's the issue. I mean, we're not.
You either come from like Locust or
The alley connects the alley connects between
Urban
Terrace
and Edwards,
and
right?
Edwards, yeah.
So where does Silver Street come in?
Silver Street is, you go up all the way up the top to Urban Terrace and take a right. That's Silver.
That little street, Silver.
Yeah, before the house on the stilts is right there. He's building next to that.
Okay, so that's Silver Street.
That's Silver Street, yes.
How will Tim Recton get to his property?
It's Silver Street. He'll go up Urban. I would assume, I'm assuming the entrance will be
Well, it
right.
looks like they're building the house now, and it looks like it's sitting in the yard of a house on Silver Street. So I don't know how a vehicle could get in between there.
There's no alley there. The alley,
Yeah, so, and I've seen him drive back to Edwards and drive up the hillside.
he owns all that.
Yeah.
He owns it. He bought that was the old city incinerator site.
Yeah,
He bought that from the city several years ago before I was here. So
so.
he owns all those
he's-
lots down below as well as that lot up there.
But there's never gonna ever be an alley opened up behind those residences.
We have no intention of improving that alley, no.
Okay, all right. So if I need to talk to anybody, I need to talk to Tim Rick.
Yeah,
About
if you're
that.
concerned about any, his land coming on your mother's property, you should talk to him about
Well,
it.
I'm not worried about him. I'm worried about him leaving what he's doing right now because he's got a big old pile of mud, dirt. That, I mean, if it pours and rains, all that's gonna be coming down into
Right.
my mother's property.
Well, then he would be responsible, but I think what he'll probably use that as backfill once he's done with the foundation.
Okay. All
Ms.
right.
Blankenship, I'm sorry, your mother's name again?
Janice Hutchison,
Janice Hutchinson, thank you.
Hutchison.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
for your time.
Okay.
Of course, thank you. Oh, thank you for your participation. Floor is still open. The podium is yours. State your name and your address, please.
Hi, I'm Susan Beresford. You guys may or may not know me, but I own Farm to Hangover, which is a Dayton-based business. You all graciously leased me 2 lots on 4th Avenue where I grow all the ingredients for my Bloody Marys. So I just want to thank you first for that. Please don't take it away. So on that 1/4 acre, I grow 212 tomatoes, 178 peppers, 72 cucumbers. I rotate carrots, I rotate beets, all of that goes into my Bloody Marys. What I also have is a ton of excess product too. So all the events that I did last year, I did 19 events last year. From that 1/2 acre, I did 1,200 jars of Bloody Marys.
Wow.
It completely sold out in 3 months. I did 19 events. 1 was in Dayton. So for this year, I did a bold move for my business. I am not showing at any events outside of Dayton. I want Dayton to be the destination. So what I'm doing is starting and trying to organize a market. I want to kind of rethink the farmers market because there's so few farmers in Kentucky right now that all these farmers markets are competing for just a few farmers. But if we rethink it to micro, think of it to your neighbors, people that are growing vegetables right here in Dayton that have access, like they're more. They go onto the Facebook page, they have extra peppers. They don't have enough to have a booth at these farmers markets, but they might have enough for a small table. So I talked to Valerie Drew from Tuba, and they have that amazing beer garden. They're trying to put in an awning for that. The reason why I bring that up is if we do a market there, we don't have to have these farmers come in and set up a tent. They don't have to do tables. They don't have to bring this huge event. That's a really big cost for people that maybe have a small bed of vegetables in their backyard here in Dayton that we can actually have fresh vegetables. So what I'd like to do is organize on Thursday nights with the help of Valerie and Drew. They might not know, we've talked about it, but I might have to find another location with your all help. And have every Thursday night so people know they can come there and they can get, not only I'll be selling the Bloody Marys, pico de gallo, I'll have pickles, all sorts of other things. Tuba is talking about doing their pretzels just for Thursday night because they're not open Thursday nights and they'll just have a pretzel stand. Other people that are in the community that can come down and I can talk to them about selling what they have in their backyard. They've got those tables there. What I want to do is what you guys are trying to do as well. Dayton is the destination. I want people to come here. They know they can get it on Thursday nights. It's not the weekend. We're not competing with other farmers markets. It's more about our neighbors because I know a lot of you, we live here. I want it to be something that I'm not looking to make a huge profit on my excess tomatoes. I want them to be gone at the end of the night. I'm just asking for a little bit of like money here and there. That's all going back to the farm that I work. So if you guys haven't come by, do you guys know where it's at? It's on 4th Avenue, right on the main drag going out to the marinas. On Saturdays, I'm there every Saturday with my 80-year-old father. He works it with me. So it has that fence. It's not to keep you all out. It's really to keep that groundhog out that eats everything. So as I organize this, the reason why I'm coming to council is I want to make that net a bigger net. You guys are part of the community. If you can kind of spread the word to your neighbors here, if they're looking, if they've got too many peppers, I'm going to start just talking to the community garden and other people about how we can serve our own neighbors and have those fresh vegetables and things like that, instead of trying to compete with all the other farmers markets to get the 3 or 4 farmers that are out there. And they got to do these huge booths. They got to bring in these big tents. But let's think a little bit more micro. Let's think about our neighbors right here that can do that. I mean, there's a lot of people that can do food. So that's why I'm coming here today, to kind of talk to you about organizing that and to get you guys to your continued support and excitement about it as I come back to you and talk to you about how we can really kind of grow everybody coming to Dayton and building our city center.
Love it.
I was gonna say, I love it.
I love what you've already done, not to mention what you're trying to do.
Thank you. I mean, have you guys please come down to the farm? I can't tell you enough how many people come while I'm working there with my dad, and they come right out. Do you have any extra? I mean, I'm happy to give away what I have. You know, I'm with just that small quarter of an acre. Can you believe just that? I made 1,200 jars. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of space to provide a lot of food. So I just want to really build that excitement for Dayton and just kind of really celebrate us more than me constantly going out to other neighborhoods and other cities, which is great. But I thought, I'm just gonna make everybody come to me.
Love it. I remember the first time I met you in your backyard. It was so cool. We went into her backyard and she had, I don't know how many tomato plants she had, but I mean, it was chock full.
I think I had 17 in my tiny backyard.
And she had a nice little postage stamp backyard. She had all these tomato plants and carrots back there, and we were just amazed the first time we met you to where you are today. So thank you so much for promoting Dayton. Thank you so much for providing healthy food.
Yeah, no, thank
Let's
you.
do
I mean,
more.
like I said, it was 2 unused lots of the city leased to me. I appreciate that you guys have done that for me. I don't take it lightly. I keep it very nice. I'm adding a ton of sunflowers on the roadside to it. I did them alongside of the neighbor's yard, and he loved it. He and his wife. He's very kind. Every time I'm out there past 9 o'clock at night, he puts a spotlight on me to make sure, because I have no lighting out there. The welding repair shop, Joe, who is the owner, is extremely supportive of me. He donates all the water, free of charge, has never asked me for a dime. So I really love him and his wife, Stephanie. The community down there has 100% supported me, and they always ask and they always look out for me, and they constantly reach out to me on Facebook, just saying really encouraging words. So I've been really, really fortunate. So thank you.
Can we use you as the poster child
For what?
for the Thursday night food exchange, the vegetable exchange? I mean, we need a point person for it.
Yes. Oh, thank you. So I didn't really say that. Is as you're kind of talking to community, if this comes up in conversation, please use me as a point of contact. They can reach me on Facebook at Farm to Hangover, Instagram Farm to Hangover. But again, my name is Susan Beresford. They can reach me that way as well. And I'm really just come to you today just to make that net a little bigger. I can talk a big game, but I just need all of your help because you're part of the community. You know your neighbors. If we can just get the word out, I think this can be a really great thing where a lot of other cities are going to be pretty jealous that we have it.
It was yours that blew up. Here, use mine.
Hi. Okay, so you have extra tomatoes. You want to start at Tuba, maybe, and then maybe move on if it gets bigger. You're encouraging people in the community to also sell.
Yep. They're excess.
and bring it. That's
Yep.
it.
Yep.
Okay. Alex, do you know anything wrong with that? I've always wondered. I don't know the laws about selling your own stuff that you grew at home. Is that fine? It's totally fine. Awesome.
Sell it.
Okay, I did not know that.
I mean,
okay.
do you have an occupational license?
I do, yeah.
What about all the other people? What about if 20 people came with their green peppers? Do they have to get an occupation?
I mean, technically, if you're a vendor, you should have an occupational license, but let's be honest, we could probably figure out a way to exempt them.
Good. Okay.
So,
We've had many vendors that are events that don't do it, so I think we've kind of,
In Morgantown, if you grew your own produce in the county, we did not charge you a business license fee.
that's a good idea.
That was the one exemption that we had.
I mean, technically, it's kind of like, the way I look at it, like an IRB bond, because the city owns the land. So technically, those plants should all, and the produce should all be tax-free.
Yeah.
Right,
But
Jay?
even not just because she's running from the city, but everybody else. It's fine. Okay. And you want to do it on Thursday nights, starting out.
I'm hoping to do Thursday evenings.
And you want to spread the word so other people will join you.
Yes. So where I'm starting now is for getting the people who want to maybe get involved or even dip their toe into it. This could be like cut flowers. I mean, it really, I'm looking for it to be more food produce and consumables. I love City Flea, but I'm not seeing, that's not what we're doing. And under cottage law and things like that, this is considered, farm stand. So it is coming to you first to get that word out of people who are maybe interested. Maybe it comes up in conversation because the growing season, we're looking at August where this would start. So if I start now putting the word out there, we can have, it's great if it's just me. I'm totally fine standing out there and hailing down every car and going over to the fire department and saying, please come over. I have tomatoes. I have no problem doing that. What I would love to do is this be something exciting for the city, that we know about it, that we have it every Thursday night. I'm not saying that we don't love all the different farmers and support them, but we can support each other.
I love it.
And I think that the trend of going even more micro is something we have to think about. We do have this in our own backyards. It doesn't take that much. It's a postage stamp of a property, but I grow so much from it. And I just want to share it with my neighbors in a way that just encourages other people to share fresh produce.
I like your tagline. Dayton is the destination.
Dayton,
Somebody should write that
100%
down.
is the destination.
Somebody should write that down.
Yes. Yes, we are the destination. We are not the ending point. We are the destination. So I have been fortunate. I have a lot of great followers that come for my Bloody Marys. I got Channel 12 did a spot on me, Channel 9, Rachel Roberts, state representative. Now, is she representative? Yep, she is. And came to the farm in 2020. I got Best of Cincinnati. So there's a lot of momentum that was very fortunate. Now I just want to make everybody come here to us. So, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Anybody else in the audience like to address council administration? Time is yours. It's closing. It's closed. Do we have any unfinished business? Jerry? I don't know. Seems like something you'd want to be in the middle of. Talk about bump outs?
Just say no, Joe, please.
I love progress. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn? Member Volter's made the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Kelly. All in favor?
Aye.
Happy voting day. See you next month.